This is the PowerShell Podcast, PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit Edition. Think of it as PowerShell After Dark, the bar sessions. A behind-the-scenes look at the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit After Dark. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Another bar session coming off the heels of an interview. I am joined by none other than, and I've been saying in every single interview, none other than for every single person, and I didn't realize it, but I'm just going to keep going with it. None other than Ambre Herron. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
So, what are you up to this week? I know you're in the OnRamp program. How's it been for you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of information all at once.
For sure.
Which is equal parts really good, and also, like, I feel like I'm not retaining enough of it, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of it's recorded and we have books, so I'm going to have to go back and be like, all right, I know you told me this, but let me actually go in and figure out what it is.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. I think just taking notes, and you can't nobody can retain everything, but sort of having the map or knowing of things that you might encounter in the future and things to follow up on that might be helpful for you. But this is your first PowerShell conference. Have you gone to other conferences?
Not for tech, really, no.
Okay.
No.
Wow. Well, that's quite the first conference.
Yeah, I got insanely lucky to be here.
That is huge. How'd you hear about the conference?
My coworker found it, and he presented it to our boss, and I was like, there's no way that our boss is going to say yes. And then he said yes, and my coworker asked if I wanted to go, and I'm like, there's no way both of us are going. That's insane. And then for some reason, my boss was like, yeah, go on. And I was like, yes, I will take this opportunity.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my first summit and just traveling for work in general. Feels like, wow, I am a professional with skills that offer something that are worth investing in, and it's kind of a perspective changer for me. But day one of the OnRamp program was a PowerShell deep dive.
Yes.
Were you familiar with PowerShell going into it? Was it sort of fresh to you, or?
I have very little PowerShell experience. I've used it just a bit at work. The basic commands are not that hard because I have done coding before. But it was new syntax. The logical part of it, of like piping, it makes sense. Mostly it's the syntax that I'm going to have to sit down and really study.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you feeling pretty exhausted? Because the thing about the conference is there is so much awesome technical stuff. A lot of it's pretty deep. And then there's also social stuff afterwards that you want to capitalize on. So it's a balancing act of making sure that you're taking care of yourself and giving enough time, but also taking full advantage.
Yeah, I'm exhausted right now.
Yeah, and I convinced you to do this, so thank you.
I mean, but I stayed up, and because I want to have these opportunities. I want to get to know the people and get more immersed in like the culture, because I've done specifically cybersecurity for a while, but I've usually kept to myself. So I'm trying to be a bit more like extroverted and get to know people, kind of thing.
And it does help. I know we always hear about, like, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. I think it's a bit of a hybrid, but it's going to be very challenging to proceed in our careers and to feel safety and community without putting ourselves out there and getting involved in the community and whatever works for us. Not everyone's going to be like, oh, I want to go talk at a conference. Totally fine, but finding the ways that you can engage and learn from the community. And makes me think, what is, for where you are and what your goals are, what is your next kind of goal or thing you want to do? Maybe it's during this week. Maybe it's whenever you go back home, something you want to readdress. Do you have any kind of goals that are sticking out to you? Don't you love these impromptu questions right on the spot?
Well, it's hard because I'm thinking, like, I have personal goals and then I have like career goals, and recently I'm trying to find a way to mesh more of like my passions and what I care about with my work, because for a while I've just kind of been doing work, you know, like I do cybersecurity and I do care about that, but it's kind of gotten a bit monotonous, a bit routine. So now I'm trying to think, how can I pivot into something that I care more about, have more passion for. So there's kind of more vigor to work.
Yeah. Being connected to the impact that your work does is so, for me and for many others, critical to like being invested in doing the work. And it's a lot more rejuvenating to like work hard on something when you feel connected to the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a challenging situation there. I think my takeaway for the week is I'm probably going to choose one technical topic a year to sort of learn about, give a talk about, maybe blog about a little bit, do some videos on, that kind of thing, and sort of use that as a way to discover new technologies that I wouldn't encounter ordinarily and sort of extend my reach a little bit. You mentioned cybersecurity. I love that stuff. I wish I had more opportunities to do security stuff, so that may be, maybe next year I'll give some talks security related. Who knows? Maybe a teaser. So you've been here for a while. You've been amongst the community. It's kind of a unique experience to be here for the first time. I remember my first year, it was like, whoa, this is a lot. I'm used to being the kind of one who's proficient at things, and now there's a bunch of people. A point I kind of harp on is it's really cool how people are kind of free to be themselves here, and you see people who are fully like authentically themselves, and it's pretty interesting. I really enjoy that. It's kind of invigorating for me. But what have been some of your takeaways of kind of observing and being here for the first week of the community?
It has been a real mixed bag. I mean, as any community is, I've met some like wonderful people who I've really connected with off the bat and been like, this is awesome, this is great. And then I've met some people that it's like, okay, we live very different lives. We are in different tracks right now. So it's definitely been a bit up and down, but overall, a lot of really good experiences.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for me, I like being physically in the same vicinity as other people that are like working on similar stuff for me. Not all the time. I work remote, but it really rejuvenates me to be like, okay, I'm not alone. It's struggling with these things or like trying to do whatever, learn, deal with technologies that can be challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really, for me personally, very soothing to talk with some of the other women here.
Yeah.
Because women in tech, we're a small number. But where I live is, I'm the only woman in the IT department.
Right.
And, like, the college I went to, like, I was maybe one of two women, and my teacher was... He was very okay with saying some weird sexist stuff.
Right.
So it's like, all right, I definitely need to find other women to be like, you know, how are you dealing with this?
Yeah.
What's the best way to go around this? How do I not lose my mind, you know?
Gosh, yeah. I can't relate to that. You know, I don't have experiences similar to that. I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm glad that there is some connection that you can find, and I can't imagine trying to navigate things like that without some form of support system or like at least like, hey, this is not me, right? This is like really out of line, right?
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've had to step back and be like, all right, is this just me feeling weird and having a hard time, or is this actually like an issue that I need to address? And it's so vital to be able to get that feedback from other people to be like, no, that's actually an issue that we need to address.
And I hope that you can make these connections and, you know, outside of the week, maybe have some people you can keep interacting with. It's one of the things I really try and take away is finding new people to kind of broaden your network, broaden your support network. Obviously, professional growth stuff is amazing, but yeah, it's a big takeaway for me with the community stuff. Now, what is one tip you would give? Maybe it's based on something you've seen this week. Maybe it's based on maybe some things you've realized in life or are passionate about. What is one tip you would share to the people listening out there?
I think for me personally, something that I've had to learn is that I deserve to be in these spaces.
Yeah.
I might not be in the same like financial bracket, or I might not have been working as long as some other people, but I still need to recognize that it's important for me to be here, and I need to not get too down on myself when like, oh, I don't necessarily understand what's happening but the whole reason I'm here is to learn what's happening. You know, I think it's really easy to get dissuaged quickly specifically in tech fields when a lot of new things happen so quickly all at once. Like,
yeah, it's tough because it sort of requires a degree of vulnerability, which is very challenging if there's not that also feeling of safety.
yes.
Which can be really challenging at times. I hope that the community can provide some form of safety and reassurance. And I know for me, whenever I was able to find that kind of room to feel okay being myself and not having to feel the pressure of like, I don't need to know it all, it was really transformative for my career. But it was a freaking struggle because you do have to be vulnerable at a certain point. And if you've had bad experiences in the past, that can take time. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's great to head in the right direction, but be patient with yourself. Give yourself time to grow. That's been something that I've worked on with myself and not being quite so hard, giving yourself kind of some understanding.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Amber, thank you so much for joining. This is a delight.
Thanks
I'm going to
for
turn
having
off
me.
recording and I'd like to keep chatting with you, but
Yeah.
where can people find you? I know you're on LinkedIn. I'll have a link to it. Your name's Ambre Herron.
Yeah, it's just Ambre Herron on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more active on there, you know, try to network more.
Yeah.
So that's the primary place I'm at.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Cheers. We are fresh off of eating a yummy scrumdiddlyumptious dinner. We ate separately, but we're here together now afterwards in the conference hotel. I am joined with none other than Austin Hollett. How are you doing tonight?
Doing lovely. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm glad I get to talk to you finally. I know we've been talking about it throughout the week. Been a couple of plans changed, but here we are now. It's been a pretty fun summit so far. It's the end of Wednesday. How's it been for you so far this week?
Of course, it's always action-packed and information-packed. So looking forward to seeing what else we can look forward to and what else I can explode my brain on.
Any notable talks you've seen so far?
I really say the predictive
Predictive intelligence?
Yes, the predictive intelligence, and there was also something that Justin Grody was talking about the predictive
Feedback providers?
Yeah, the feedback providers.
Yeah,
those two. Those are some really interesting things that I was interested in. So I want to take a little bit more of a deeper dive into that. Just kind of see if I can get something for maybe my company as well.
Nice. So I know I've seen you around for a while now, but what was your first summit?
My first summit was actually last year.
Wow. How was that for you?
It was a lot to take in, but I did have some coworkers that have previously been here.
Nice.
So I had a little bit of kind of what to expect, which
Yeah.
definitely helped me out because I've never been to a work conference before until last year. So I felt like I was very in over my head, not sure what to expect. But after kind of feeling like it was very welcoming and, just dealing with everyone, I was like, wow, this is very welcoming.
Yeah.
And I was excited to help and give back to the community after that.
I was talking to Vanda earlier about how one of my favorite things is at PowerShell Summit, people are able to be themselves. And it's really cool when you can see someone be their authentic selves and just totally them. It's kind of inspiring sort of and energizing. It's that's awesome. And it sort of creates a space for you to feel comfortable to be yourself. It's a really magical environment. I look forward to this every single year. So it's really cool that we all get to share this. And, second year in a row we've seen each other. Maybe we'll see each other 5 years from now and kind of keep growing throughout our careers.
I'm hoping so. I've been thoroughly enjoying the two conferences that I've been to so far. I hope to continue keep coming. And, if I have to pay out of my own pocket, I'll do that if I need to.
It is totally worth it. It really is. It's worth investing in yourself. And especially if you haven't attended something like this or PowerShell Summit, there is a difference before and after. Your career is going to be impacted, your outlook, your perception of things. It's great stuff. Now, I have a question for you, not so much summit related, but what are some of your goals with PowerShell? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to work on?
Well, I don't really have anything kind of set in stone, but something that I really enjoy is just programming and scripting.
Yeah.
And having a bit of background with just different languages, kind of granted they can muddle together.
Yeah.
For me, I just want to do something with scripting and programming because that's what I enjoy doing. Granted, I know not every company is just only looking for a programmer.
Right.
So, maybe something that's doesn't have to be PKI related, but something that has a little bit more involvement with scripting.
Yeah.
And keeps me on my toes, helps me keep learning, and continue to advance that stuff too.
So what do you like about coding? For me, I really enjoy kind of getting into the flow and like solving problems creatively. What is it for you?
Well, it's kind of the same so I like to think analytically. A lot of the stuff that I like to think of, it's like, okay, I have a problem. What can I do to solve this? And then I kind of go to like my auto default is just, can this be automated? And I'll kind of think, it's like, can this be PowerShell? Is this Java? Just anything that can be worked on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I appreciate people who love PowerShell, but also that know that we're trying to solve a problem. And you can use whatever tool you want. A lot of us love PowerShell, and it's oftentimes our go-to. But the beauty about PowerShell is you can use it to call other things. It can still be your home base, and you can use it a bunch. But it's totally fine to not use exclusively PowerShell for everything, especially in this day and age. There's a lot of cool technologies out there. Mm-hmm. One thing that I am looking forward to on Thursday at 2 p.m., the final day of the conference, is you and many others are going to be giving lightning demos, which are short 5 to 10 minute presentations on different, maybe PowerShell or related things. What is your talk going to be on?
So mine it's not actually like a code demo or anything like that. It's actually a little bit, it's more of an informative lightning demo. So basically what I'm going to be talking about is kind of like what other resources there are available to PowerShell community. Sometimes you might have like an issue and you're not really sure where to go. So basically what I'm trying to do is just kind of like, here are some platforms that are available, everyone that's available, like anything that's they can use. Mm-hmm. So talking about, of course, our PowerShell forums, the Discord, Slack, and kind of the other forums that there are available as well. And, just kind of show them, maybe introduce them. And if people want to make accounts on them, absolutely they can go for it. Because sometimes you just need that one person and they get it, and then you solve that problem that you're looking for.
Completely. And I highly recommend, if you're out there, especially if you're listening to this, it's awesome that you're listening to a resource like this, but you're going to want to get involved in some communities and get some time to interact with others, whether that's the forums, whether that's the Discord, whether that's user groups, whatever it is for you. You got to find that, because it really does reduce the time to solving problems and can sort of really help, at least for me, get me out of my own head a little bit and sort of have other people who can provide their perspective. And I want to also say aka.ms/PS Discord, aka.ms/PS Slack, if you'd like to join the PowerShell org Discord, where a bunch of, I don't know if it's PowerShell org actually, just PowerShell Discord. A bunch of people are in there, Microsoft people, community members at large. Are you in there?
So I actually just recently joined the Discord. But as far as like the PowerShell forums, I'm actually a moderator on there.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the other people, I think Crazy Doug and Nick, they're both amazing people. They have some pretty good knowledge on it as well. And kind of the more, I would say popular people on as far as moderators. Granted, I don't have as much knowledge in PowerShell, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
It's the forums actually is helping me kind of, it's like, hey, like this is this topic that I'm interested in. So now I know to go check it out and learn more about it.
Yeah, it gives you an excuse to learn and help others. And I like saying that, the best way to learn is to teach. It's a really fantastic way to solidify the knowledge that you've already learned to a certain extent, but we want to kind of get in there for good and get full understanding of the concepts that we're teaching out here. And I want to shout out that resource of the forums. You can ask questions currently. But there's also been a ton of amazing questions asked over the years, and people like you and other people in the community have put in a lot of time to answer those. So highly recommend checking that out. Where can people find that? PowerShell.org, and then click on forums.
Say that again.
Where can people find that? PowerShell.org.
So it's PowerShell.org. Yes. And you can actually connect your account. You can create accounts. You can also use other accounts. Like I actually have mine with my GitHub.
Nice.
So if you're trying to find me, I think it's just Austin H. So that's my account name on the PowerShell forums.
Perfect. And how did you get involved in becoming a moderator? Like, how did that kind of come across your radar?
Well, the first time I came to the PowerShell conference, I was kind of just thrown away with how much the community there was and how welcoming they were. And I wanted to get involved in some way. I wasn't really sure how. And at one point, James Petty, shout out him, of course.
Shout out.
He was kind of asking people to volunteer if they would help out with the PowerShell forums moderation. And I'm just like, that feels like something that I can do because I've done forum moderation before. So I figured, you know what, like, it's no stranger to me. I'll jump on and help out, see what I can do to give back to the community.
That's awesome, because that's what it's all about. It's about finding out what works for you, right? Some people are going to be into doing podcasty stuff. Some people are going to be into blogs. Some people are going to be into contributing to the forums. And I think it's really important for whoever's out there listening, find your way to contribute. The greatest first step is to actually see what's out there and maybe ask some questions. But going forward, kind of keep it in your mind. How can you give back? And in giving back, like you said earlier, you get something from it as well. You learn, you make new connections, you increase your technical skills. It's good all around. Now, it doesn't have to be related to this week, but what is one tip or one thing that you've been thinking about lately that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Well, I would say probably, and it kind of came from actually one of the side sessions from today, or actually it might have been yesterday, but the side session was called How to Extrovert. And something that, speaks volumes to, I think, a lot of the IT folks. I feel a lot of us are very kind of introverted. Just do one small thing that's just out of your comfort zone and just see where it can lead you. Because for me, like, I absolutely hate talking. So I was like, okay, I can jump on a podcast, get a little bit out of my comfort zone. And then I thought, if I can do a podcast,
Yeah.
why not do a lightning demo? So that's how I got into the lightning demo as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that that's your tip, because I talked to Vanda, who ran that side session. We talked about that, and that was her tip for whenever I asked. It's like, find your next step that you can do, find that new person to talk to, whatever it is. And that's something that I echo all the time, because on this podcast and in general in the community, what we see from people can feel like, oh, I couldn't replicate that. That's too much. And the truth is, whoever is doing that stuff, it was one small step at a time. They slowly increased what they were able to do and were comfortable with. And it takes time, but it is so important to start that process.
Yeah, and probably maybe something to add to that. You may have like a very big end goal. Think of it as, instead of like trying to get to that end goal, think of what steps can you take to get to that end goal. Like, what kind of people can you network to? Just kind of the baby steps. Don't try to do like, you'll see like the memes where it's like from one step to like the second step to the third step, and it's just them taking up to the fifth step. It's like, no, think of it for the first step to the second to the third to the fourth.
Yep, and it's great to be driven and to be going towards something, but there's also something to be said about appreciating the journey and the process to get there, because there will always be that thing you're striving for. Whenever you reach your goals related to PowerShell or whatever, you'll then have new goals that you need to work forward, and it's important to kind of find a way to not get too stressed and enjoy the process.
Yep.
And I think being around other people, it's a great opportunity to learn and see how others are handling that kind of thing. But Austin, such a pleasure chatting with you. I'm glad to get to meet you officially on the podcast.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to the rest of the week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the week and getting my lightning demo in too, and just seeing what other people we can reach out to, and look forward to meeting more people here and just get to know everyone. And
are you a social media person or no?
So I really only have my I really only just created my GitHub today.
Okay.
So I'm working on that, trying to get that little officiated, I suppose.
Yeah. LinkedIn?
I do have a LinkedIn, yes.
Okay. Did you want to plug it? If anybody wants to connect, they say, oh, Austin sounds awesome. I want to chat with him about this and that.
Yeah. So it's just the typical LinkedIn.com. And I'm not sure exactly the exact link, but it's just my first name. So Austin and then dash Hollett, I believe. So just as far as spelling that, it's just HOLLETT.
Awesome. And I will connect with you. So if people are connected with me and they connect with you, they'll say, hey, we got that mutual.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, appreciate it. Well, cheers.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, heck yeah. We are back with another interview. Bar sessions. It's getting later, but somehow the bar's getting louder. I'm joined with none other than Cory Knox and Ryan Richter. Welcome to the bar. How y'all doing?
Thanks for having us.
Great.
Great. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's been a wild week. I think you all have both done several speaking sessions, and starting off the week, day one, we had some workshops. And I think these were 4-hour, was it 4 or 3 hours?
3 hours.
3-hour deep dives into a topic. So did you all do one of those? And if so, what was the topic?
Oh, we talked about PowerShell and just using Notepad to work your PowerShell scripts.
Oh,
no.
Cory, he's got jokes. Ryan, this is what we're dealing with tonight. We got Cory on the jokes.
Okay. Seriousness, we talked about using the Git source control mechanism.
Ryan is the expert, so.
Source control,
No.
that sounds like something we should all be using. Git. That sounds like something that many people want to learn about but struggle with.
Yeah. It sounds like a great talk, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. I wonder, is there anywhere... Oh, I missed out on PowerShell Summit this year and I missed that talk. Is there anywhere I can check it out in the future?
Well, conveniently, there's this place called YouTube on the internet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All the sessions from here eventually get produced and put on there.
For free, or do I have to...
Yeah, for free.
Oh my...
Completely
for the community?
free. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. By the community, for the community.
Wait, it's free?
Free.
It's free.
I've been paying for it.
Oh.
Cory is in his zone tonight. I love it. Judd would be proud. Judd would be very proud.
Would he?
He would, and he's been in rare form this week, and it's great to see. Giving us all the dad jokes we yearn for. But what was it like preparing for a 3-hour workshop?
Long?
Tedious.
I remember hearing you all talk about some of the struggles of such a long session, but how do you feel now that it's over?
I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
It was a growing experience, I'd say.
We went into it, or I went into it at least, thinking that we didn't have enough content even for 45 minutes, figuring we'd just blast through everything, and we ended up not quite having enough time for everything we had to talk about.
Yeah.
We did manage to get to, like, the parts that we missed at the end were bonus parts, so
Wow.
to speak, but...
Now, you've spent a lot of time learning and preparing for this talk. Do you think that you're going to do more talks on Git in the future and sort of reuse the work you did here, maybe do the same talk again? What are your thoughts there, Ryan?
I think I could definitely I feel comfortable giving maybe a shorter format of kind of the workshop that we did. I would say possibly in the future. This, not necessarily a workshop, but, kind of a shorter form session.
I like that.
A user group talk possibly or something like that.
Like maybe somewhere in Florida, maybe somewhere like Gainesville, maybe somewhere that like I am the leader of.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Look at us connecting dots, getting out there in the community, making friends, seeing friends old and new.
Yes.
Now, Cory, you're a veteran speaker at this point.
Am I?
I think you are. Are you not?
He's been around the block a time or two.
You know a
It's
thing
not my
or two.
first rodeo.
You've broke a thing or two. You know a thing or two. But now we have Ryan joining the ranks of PowerShell Summit speaker. This was your first year speaking at PowerShell Summit.
Yeah,
That's a pretty big deal, dude.
it is. I feel. It's crazy because 2 years ago I was in the OnRamp program.
That is amazing, dude. I've been really enjoying watching your journey and your rise, and it's a little bit similar to mine in a lot of ways. Like the first conference I ever spoke at was PowerShell on the River, and that sort of paved the way. And then eventually, I think it was that year, maybe the next year, I spoke at Summit, and here you are speaking at Summit. Only I did a normal
Last year
section.
was my first speaking engagement at PowerShell on the River.
Oh my gosh, man! I love to see it. Yeah, it's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing where the future takes you. Now, you all planning on coming back here next year?
Sorry?
Are you planning on coming back here next year?
Probably not. There's this jerk that's always at the bar with microphones trying to get us to talk.
Harassing you.
And getting kind of tired of it, so
I don't know. He's pretty friendly though.
He is.
He could convince us.
I definitely would like to attend again in the next year and probably for several years to come.
Perfect.
I haven't been to every PowerShell event, but by far this has been my favorite for the years I have come.
This is definitely my of all of the PowerShell events that I've attended in person. PowerShell Summit is by far my favorite. It may also be the only one, but that's mere coincidence.
If it satisfies the need, that is perfect. That's where it's at. Question I've been asking everyone this week, Cory, is maybe it's based on some things you've seen this week, maybe it's based on where your head has been or what you're passionate about, but what is one tip that you would give to the people out there listening right now who maybe aren't here right now?
That's an excellent question.
Some would say thought-provoking.
Very much so thought-provoking. Ryan, what is your one tip of the week?
One tip of the week. The whole week.
The whole week that hasn't even finished yet.
You have something to tell and you can do it.
Dude, and you're living that advice, right?
Yeah.
You've gone kind of through it. Probably experienced some fear on the front end of like, oh crap, I'm going to put myself out there.
Oh, absolutely.
You took your next step. You took another next step and several small steps in between that were probably less visible to the outside. And here you are.
Farther up that hill. I can look down it a little bit farther.
Exactly. You're building a brick wall, one brick at a time.
I would say two things. Submit talks, and when they get accepted, don't be editing them 5 minutes before the presentation starts, especially if you have animations, because it can really throw you off when PowerPoint decides to change those animations on you.
Oh, no.
But then...
Good advice.
Just... You gotta go
freeze changes are a real thing.
Yeah,
you should adhere to.
My advice that I would give on a similar vein that worked well for me and my co-presenter, Kevin Cephalou, was to prepare and schedule time for yourself way ahead of time. You don't want to feel stress if possible, right? It doesn't have to be a painful experience. Some nervousness is welcome and it's part of the process. But if you do that prep work and sort of set yourself up for success, it's easier. Always easier said than done, right? I'm personally always running against deadlines in my life, so
yeah.
I'm glad to be saying the advice, but I could personally use a little bit more of it. It's a juggling act.
Like many of us, we're more than happy to give other people advice that we're not going to listen to.
I mean, I'm listening, but implementing is it's always an implementation, right?
There we go. It's the implementation. It's you can, and it's the same in tech. You know what you need to do. It's getting it and doing the implementation that never goes the way that you wanted it to.
Cory Knox dropping wisdom on us tonight. This is why you come to Summit.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, Cory, thanks for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's been a pleasure seeing you this week. Ryan, huge congrats. Where can people find you on social media, Ryan?
I'm probably the most active, probably on LinkedIn and like my Twitter, I would say. Yep, both Ryan Richter 94.
Ryan Richter 94.
Yep.
Nice.
On all the places.
I'm a year older than you, I now know. I'm 93. We got Cory Knox over here. Cory, where can we find you? We love your humor. We love your essence. We love the vibes. Where can we find more? PowerShell Slack. I know you're in there.
I'm in the PowerShell.
You're a moderator, Mr. Moderator.
Well, technically I'm a moderator in the Discord, not the Slack.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Well, that's where the cool kids are these days.
You can find me in Discord. I am .corebob. I'm also on Twitter as Cory Knox or X or whatever they're calling it when this comes out.
Yes.
I'm on there as Cory Knox. I don't tweet often, and often it's not necessarily about PowerShell, but if you want to follow me, great. If not...
You'll get a few laughs along the way.
Oh, you
Trust
certainly
me.
will. Maybe some cringes, maybe some laughs.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe some 15 hamburgers.
It was 13.
13.
13 burgers.
Yeah, that happened the other night. We were at the hotel, and some of us wanted a local hamburger joint, you could say. What was it called?
Say Dick's Drive-In.
Dick's Drive-In. Yes, Old Richards, as we call it.
Richards.
And you ordered burgers for everybody, and you went and picked them up.
Yep.
And apparently, you were given a hard time by the employees. You're the 15 burger guy.
Well, so again, it was 13
I'm
burgers.
just gonna keep adding more. So the 17 burger guy is joining us tonight on the podcast.
So we got there, and I went to order. I said I want the 13 burgers and everything else that was with it. And he says, well, that's going to take a couple minutes. We have to get through what we currently have, and they have whatever their process is. So I'll call you up when it's ready. And so I step off to the side. I'm talking with the people that I went there with, and then next thing I know, another customer that was waiting in line is yelling at us, says, are you the 13 burger guy? So I go back, I get my burgers, we start heading back to the hotel. I got about a block away and realized I needed the receipt so I could expense it, because I was getting it for coworkers.
Right.
So I go back, and I go up to the window, and I say to the lady, I said, I think I need the receipt. I was just here 10 or 15 minutes ago. I need the receipt so I can expense it. And she kind of sighs, looks a little bit exasperated, and says, well, I guess I could find it for you. So I said, well, if it helps, I ordered 13 burgers. And she just perks up. She says, you're the 13 burgers.
Oh.
And was very quickly able to find the receipt, because apparently 13 burgers is not often.
I have to say, Cory did burger ops at this conference.
He did, and there was a famous photo of you going around the conference with 13 burgers in your hands.
Yep.
Just some of the fun.
It's always an adventure around here.
It really is. Any late night food options for you tonight?
Sorry,
Any late night food options for you tonight?
Probably not tonight.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was a long outro. We got a little tangent in there, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you gentlemen tonight.
We appreciate it.
Cheers.
Pleasure speaking with you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to another bar session. The end of day 3. We just finished up a big, awesome, content-filled day. We have a party tonight from 7 to 10, I believe. And I am joined with none other than Vanda Paladino. We became friends last year. I was very excited when I saw you were going to be here this year.
Yes, I'm glad to be here this year. I love this summit. It is the best conference that I have ever been to in my life, and I am so happy to come here. My dirty secret is I only do PowerShell about 5% of my job, so it's not a huge percent of my job, but it's just enough that I can justify coming here and picking up new things and learning new things and bringing them back.
Yeah, we were just talking before we hit record about PowerShell and GUIs, and you attended a session that was about that.
Yeah, the very last session of the day today, and I wish I could remember the presenter's name, but I am categorically... Thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Because I am categorically bad with names, but I have been kind of looking for a few years how to put a GUI on a PowerShell module that someone else wrote. And I would like to see more people adopt, more people use. And I feel like the thing that's holding it back is that it just needs a little bit of a front end on it. So I wanted to know what my options were. And I just saw GUI and signed up for the session. But then the session turned out to be exactly that. Just do you want to do a GUI? Here are your options. Here's a way you can do it. Here's another way. You know, here's a framework if you want to have a whole set up a server, and just all these different ways to do it, and then lists of other things to look at, you know, if you wanted to do a GUI. So it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Summit. First of all, the sessions are recorded, available on YouTube later, which offers up some opportunities for the hallway track. But a lot of times in our workplace, in our jobs, we run into issues that have actually we're not the first person to see it. It's been done before, and when you're able to see a talk that sort of deconstructs a particular topic and gets you running, gets you aware of some of the challenges you might run into, it can save a lot of time in your work life, a lot of headaches you can avoid by learning from others and being able to be at a conference like this where you get the opportunity for those exchanges of knowledge is really awesome. But there wasn't just a side session. I think that afterwards, You mentioned you were having some hallway track conversations?
Yeah, I wanted to ask him some more about my particular use case, and he was nice enough to stop and talk to me. And we stood outside the room and talked for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, and more people kept coming by because it was between the session, and then it wasn't between the sessions anymore, but we were still standing there, and a few more people came by, and it turned almost into its own hallway track side session for the last thing. We probably stood out there and talked for about an hour with a big group of people, and it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned last year was your first year. How's this year comparing for you from last year? I know last year you sort of got an understanding of what the conference would be about. Now you're back here this year.
This is actually my third year.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I was in the OnRamp 2 years ago.
Oh gosh. I was here.
You were?
think we probably met that year.
We
not
did
last
as
year.
well,
Yeah.
but you know, the OnRamp people are not in a lot of the main sessions, so you don't get as much a chance to talk to them. But last year was the first year that I did the main track, and I was able to take some of that home and do a few things. You know, my PowerShell is small. I'm a small time PowerSheller. I have a lot of imposter syndrome being here because of that. But I was able to actually, you know, write a script from scratch to do nothing exciting, but just do some archiving, move a bunch of files from a place to a place at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And put a lot of, I work in energy, so put a lot of error checking around that because we don't want to lose anything ever.
Right. I completely agree with that. And that's the beauty of something like PowerShell, because PowerShell is a tool. So, yeah, some people are going to have a lot of use cases and be using it day in and day out. But ultimately, me and what I find interesting is getting PowerShell value from it in any way that you can. Meet you kind of where you are. You don't have to be the greatest. We're all applying PowerShell to a particular context, whatever we're working on, and just accelerating that and seeing more and more people here this week going back with ideas and projects that they can go home and implement. And that's my favorite thing that I try and really drive home to people is when you're here, try and find those 1 to 3 things that you learn about. You can learn from them, implement at work, and have success, and maybe make a justification for coming back in the future.
And also bring back things that you can share with people who weren't here. Everyone on my team is trying to like dip their toes into PowerShell into various levels. So being able to bring things back and, you know, share what I've learned and maybe answer someone else's question because of something I did here it's a great value. And then just the connections that you make, I think, are so important here.
I completely agree. And there is content that is on the schedule we've known about for months. It's been being prepared. But there's also an opportunity here for what's called side sessions, which are sort of impromptu. People who are here, they're passionate about something, they've connected with someone, they want to talk about it, whatever the case may be, they have the opportunity to have a side session. And I believe you had a side session yesterday.
I did yesterday right after lunch. It started last year, actually. There was a group of us sitting down in the bar. Jason Hammock and I were talking about introversion and how hard it is to come to something like this as an introvert.
Oh, yeah.
We had a really long conversation at it. And at the end, I said I was kind of thinking of doing a lightning demo about that. And they challenged me, you know, to do that this year. But the lightning demos are on Friday. And what I wanted to talk about is really more of a Monday, Tuesday topic than a Friday topic. So I gave a little session I just called How to Be an Extrovert, where I talked, I had to pad it out a little bit because I had to go from 5 minutes to longer. So I talked a little bit about introversion and extroversion and what they are. But the main meat, I like to think of it, is my 5 tips, which hopefully I can remember off the top of my head. My first tip, everyone says now, which is always sit with different people at every meal. Sit with different people. You can make a connection. You can talk about anything. You don't have to talk about PowerShell. Show pictures of your kids, but just make a connection. Then my second tip is the hallway track that we were talking about earlier, and how important it is. And a way to make it easier is if you do sit with different people, then you have an introduction into that hallway track. You don't have to talk. Just look for someone that you met at breakfast and go stand next to them. And then my third tip was to do all the evening activities.
Yes.
There's so much going on, and now you've already met people at breakfast, and you've already joined their hallway track. So you've built relationships now, so you can find people to talk to. And one of the things I love about this conference is how much James and John and Missy care about introverted and neurodivergent people here, and how they go out of their way to make sure that those people are comfortable, feel accepted, aren't having any harassment, and feel like they can participate.
That was one of my biggest observations the first year I was here. It was like, wow, people are really able to be themselves fully. And It was such an amazing, awesome thing. Like, I found myself, I just love all these awesome, different people that we have here. And when you see anyone be their authentic self, it's really wholesome and it feels good. And there's so much of that. And it sort of also opens up the doors for others to feel comfortable. I definitely think it is the type of thing you have to be mindful of.
Yes.
Like our team is. You have to be considerate in thinking about these things. But it is, for me, very validating and makes me feel like, I do kind of belong.
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe next year they'll put pronouns on the tags as another way of like being more accepting to others who are different.
No, I think it's important to create a space where it's as easy as possible for people to be who they are and avoid all the hurdles that come along with social interactions, meeting new people.
Yeah, we talked a lot about spoon theory and about all the spoons it takes to do these things. And we talked about wearing that mask, that costume that you wear when you go to work, and how many spoons it takes just to put that on and keep that on. And if you don't have to do that, then you have those spoons available for other things. And my fourth tip along that line was to do one more thing than you think you can do. Whatever it is, meet one more person, shake one more hand, do one more lightning demo, one more thing that you think you can do, you can do it. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can just be, hi, my name is Vanda. I'm from Indiana.
I love that, Vanda. I always tell people on the podcast, find your next step. Whatever that next thing for you is, the smallest logical unit of progress. That could be thanking someone who's helped you. That could be starting a new conversation, making a new friend, whatever the case may be. I'm on the same vibe, Vanda.
Yes.
I'm loving it.
My very last tip, though, is my contrary tip that contradicts all the others, which is rest. Take care of yourself. Bring an activity to recharge. If you like to read, bring a book. I bring my knitting. We play D&D on Wednesday night as a way for a lot of us to recharge. Bring a board game. Bring a deck of cards. Go to your room and listen to your music. Whatever it is you need to do, take that time to do that. And if that means you have to break one of the other rules by not going to a nighttime activity or missing a session or whatever, do it. Just do it.
I agree with that. I love communication skills. I love active listening. It's very important when you're talking to someone to sort of actually listen. But I think that communication with others and the way we treat others and the kindness we are so used to extending towards others, hopefully, and in our culture, we also do need to extend that to ourselves. We need to actively listen to ourselves. Are we in a social situation where maybe we're too exhausted to give it the attention it needs? Maybe we're doing ourselves and everyone around us a disservice. It is so important to, in all situations, listen to yourself, take care of yourself, because then you can be your best for the others, but you have to be good first.
Right. We've talked more about self-care in the years since the pandemic, I think. Mm-hmm. And that's really the short version of it is do self-care. You need to do it. You want to be at your best. Take care of yourself while you're here.
Yep. Completely agree. And these are things that I love, the things that we learn in the PowerShell world, but really that apply to so much beyond. You know, it's an avenue for us to practice these communication skills, for us to find more comfort and safety at life and at work. It's really cool to be growing as PowerShell users and stuff, but also sort of as people. We're all kind of growing as a community, learning from each other, trying to do better. It's very wholesome. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's as you try and take the next steps in your career, in your life, finding ways to grow and change. We all do it, and finding ways to do it in as positive a way as possible it's just really important.
Completely agree. You mentioned RPGs, and that is sort of your thing. In my head, I'm like, Vanda, the RPG extraordinaire. So what is your experience with RPGs, and why am I mentioning that at a PowerShell conference?
Okay, I couldn't hear the end of your question because it got really, really loud there.
Sorry. Why are we talking about that at a PowerShell conference, RPGs?
Okay, so here's how it started for me at PowerShell. I came the first year and I got on the Slack. I like some kinds of social media, like Slack. And I saw there was a channel called RPG Night. So I just joined it. And as the conference got closer, I put a note in it and said, hey, is this like really a thing? And it turned out it was a thing, but the guy who used to run it, whose name I don't know, and
Mikey Lombardi.
Yeah, yes, I think so. The guy, I mean, it wasn't an official thing, but it was a thing that always happened.
And people liked it, yeah.
Yeah, but he couldn't be here. So I said, well, I could do something maybe one night. And then I heard there was a quiet room at the party. So I said, well, let's do it there. Let's do it in the quiet room. And it turned out really well. And so I did it again the next year, and we had even more people. Some returned, some new, and we're going to do it again tonight. The same thing. Some people are returning. I think I've lost all my people from the first year, but I've got people returning from the second year, and we've got new people. Some people completely new to role playing that'll be there. And I'm really excited about it. I love role playing. And is it okay if I pimp a charity real quick?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. One charity I love that has to do with role playing is Extra Life.
Yes.
It is a charity. It supports Children's Miracle Network. Their big thing is in November, they do a 24-hour streaming day. And my friends and I have been doing that for the past 5 or 6 years. And it's just, we have a lot of fun. And last year we raised between everyone, between $3,000 and $4,000 for two hospitals, Hurley Children's Hospital in Detroit, Michigan, and Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis.
That's awesome. That's a great way to sort of rally behind a cause, doing something you love.
Yeah.
I've done some of those Extra Lives before. Very fun.
You can play any kind of game you want. Tabletop, video game. You could probably play basketball. I mean, whatever works for you. And you get to have a great time with your friends, make a social activity of it. And you'd be surprised how much you can raise just with a small group. You don't have to have more than 5 or 10 viewers of your stream, and you can still raise a ton of money.
I love that. Vanda, it's been a pleasure getting to chat with you. I'm sure we're going to chat more throughout the night. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Vanda, you mentioned you like some forms of social media. If people want to find you, can they find you? Do you want them to find you, or do you like quiet?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I don't use the Twitter anymore.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Vanda Paladino. They can find me there.
Vanda Paladino.
That's probably the best place. I'm on Discord. I'm Rainbow something.
Okay. Cool. I can put that in the show notes, and I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. So if people search for you and they're connected with me, they'll see a mutual connection. They'll know it's you.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Vanda. Another episode of the PowerShell After Hours Bar Session, and I'm joined with someone who I've been trying to convince to join me all week. None other than Tyson O'Keefe. Welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you, Andrew. Happy to be here.
So your first summit was in 2019, right?
It was, yeah.
That was your first, and this is your second now,
Yep.
2024.
Yep.
It's been a while.
The pandemic was a wild time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Through some
a monkey wrench, yeah.
Yeah.
But now you're here this year. Any differences you noticed from 2019 to now?
That's a good question.
The world is different.
The world is different. I think the energy is the same. I think there's the passion with PowerShell is the same for sure. Different people, same people too. But I think overall the experience has been pretty similar.
Yeah.
It's been just exposure to a lot of PowerShell in a short amount of time, and it's been fun.
So, when did we connect? What day this week did we meet? What was that like?
I came in on late Sunday night, so it was probably Monday.
Okay.
I think you sat down at the table Monday morning for breakfast across from me.
Okay. And did you say hello then, or was it later?
I did, yeah. You sat down and I said hello.
And then I think we would connect later at Monday night. There was the casino night thing. And I think you got a podcast t-shirt, right?
I did. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you listened to the podcast before?
So yeah, I've been a fairly long time listener. I'd say probably about a year ago, and I don't remember exactly how I found about the podcast, just through the community some way, either through somebody's tweet or a blog post or something.
Shout out everyone who tweets about us. Hey,
yeah. But I got onto it, and once I listened to the first podcast, I was kind of hooked. It was just awesome to be able to hear from the community and the perspectives that your guests had.
Yeah.
So
there's a bunch of them too, and every week
it has been.
It's my favorite part about doing it as well. Is I get an excuse to talk with people for an hour and sort of really understand how they tick.
Yep.
And dive into different parts of that and sort of see the similarities between different people and be like, okay, well, if so many people experience the same thing and come to the same conclusion, well, there might be really something to that. But appreciate you listening.
Yeah.
It's cool. We've sought to make something that's like kind of helpful, and with the weekly cadence, trying to be a supportive voice also, but highlighting some of the cool voices in the community, covering different topics, right? PowerShell is one thing, but it's applied in different contexts. So some security stuff, some AD stuff, some SQL stuff, some Azure stuff.
All across the board.
Some Jeffrey Snover. Have you heard of him, by the way?
I have.
Check out that episode.
So interesting. I thought it was kind of interesting how you sat down across from me at the breakfast table, and it was reminiscent to me because for me, I haven't met you yet until this week, but a bit of a celebrity. You're Andrew Pla. You've been running the podcast, right? And back in 2019, when I came here for the first time, I don't know as if it was Monday morning per se, but maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, I sat down for breakfast. I'm just doing my thing at the PowerShell Summit. Who sits across from me was Jeffrey Snover. And so that was kind of a surreal moment. I got to kind of chat with him over eggs and bacon.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about PowerShell Summit. You never know who you're going to meet. You can make, and you realize once you meet them, oh yeah, I thought they're awesome and cool. And they are awesome and cool. I'm not saying I'm not awesome and cool, but like, oh, they're actually just a real person.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more, you can connect with them and relate with them. And I've really enjoyed that and connecting with listeners like you and being like, hey, I'm starting to better understand who I'm talking to every week. So sometimes whenever I go on those rants, I'm talking to you, Tyson,
100%.
And everyone else out there listening. It really helps me. And it's been very heartwarming for me to experience this week. Very humbling. It's just been so good, man. Probably my favorite summit yet. It's been busy because I had the talk on Tuesday, which was kind of stressful, but kind of exciting. I wasn't too nervous. Last year I was, I'd say, super nervous. I redid all my slides and things like that right up until the time, so I was like pacing in the lobby. But this year I set time every single week, multiple days a week, with my co-presenter to work on this like months ahead of time. So by the time we got there, it's like, yeah, we've done this. We kind of have some confidence in our preparation. But it's been a fun week, man. How's Wednesday been for you?
Wednesday, yeah. We're at Wednesday now. We're still got a full day tomorrow.
Almost over though.
It's kind of been it's been awesome. It's been a good week. It's been a bit of a blur.
Yes.
But I like that about it. It's just constant learning, and I try to just be a sponge and absorb as much as I can.
Yep, absorb what you can, take note of what you want to follow up on, and hopefully make some new connections.
Yes.
Speaking of which, we need to connect.
I have definitely made new connections this year, as opposed to, it's been a few years since I've been here, and I recognize people from 2019 when I was here several years ago. But this is the year that I think I've actually made some real connections with people, and it's been great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think for some people, the first year, it's kind of like catching your bearings, seeing what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
And the second year, like, okay, this actually is really safe. Like, let's dive in and see what can happen.
Yeah.
So excited to get to share that with you, because I think we connected Monday, so pretty early into the week. We've seen each other several times, said, hey, what's up? And sort of grown camaraderie throughout that, with each other, but also with several other people. It's one of my favorite parts is you sort of you feel connected and not so alone in your jobs. You know, a lot of us are working on PowerShell by ourselves. You've listened to the podcast. You've heard me say this before.
100%. Yeah.
And we're here in person doing it together.
That's right.
So I love that, man. I love these bar sessions. It's such a great way to connect with different people and sort of hopefully give a little bit of a vibe of the conference because, tell you what, the vibes are good.
Yep.
Vibes have been great this week. Now, just wondering, how do you use PowerShell? Like, what do you use PowerShell for? What's the context? What is exciting about it for you?
I like to solve problems, and PowerShell for me is a great tool to solve problems with. I use it in a lot of different ways, I guess. We're mostly a Windows environment, into Azure and in the cloud as of late, so kind of expanding out there as well. And it's been fun to just kind of use PowerShell to get things done and to get it done efficiently and repeatable.
True. What is one area of improvement you're sort of focusing on or trying to get better at?
I would say I'm trying to focus more on infrastructure as code. Bicep. I'm trying to do more with like pester testing to make sure a lot of the code that I put out there is tested and have a way to kind of know what breaks when it does because of different changes that I implement to it. So I've been, I'm kind of the sole systems engineer at my company, so I've been creating some internal modules that we use. And I've been trying to get more and more buy-in at our company to use more PowerShell. So kind of evangelizing it a little bit.
You said you're the sole systems engineer.
Yeah.
How do you deal? Are you like kind of the main PowerShell person? Do you have anyone else kind of contributing, helping you?
Yeah, I'm probably the primary PowerShell guy at our company. We do have a few other people that have interest, and I'm trying to bring them along. I actually got one of them to come to the summit last year.
Really?
Actually. And he went to the OnRamp.
Nice.
I wasn't able to come last year because of scheduling conflicts, but he had a good time, and he wasn't able to make it this year. But maybe next year we'll both come.
That'd be sweet. But do you ever find yourself challenged with like feeling sort of isolated as the kind of solo PowerShell person? I know for a lot of people I've talked to this week, sort of being amongst the community, it's very validating. Like, oh, hey, there's a lot of other people sort of dealing with similar challenges, and you can learn from each other. You're not always the smartest in PowerShell in the room anymore whenever you're here.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Myself included. It's been an adjustment.
Yes. You come here and you're among the best of the best, for sure.
Yes. You know, I thought I'm writing modules. Oh, I really know a thing or two. And then you come here and you hear some conversations, extended type system, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, yep, you got me beat.
But it's not a competition, and it's energizing a little bit, because at the end of the week, you go back with all these ideas and inspirations.
Yeah.
To try to see what you can do at your job.
And I think all the way down to the PowerShell team, they're not only super impressed by the super fancy stuff. They're also impressed by the day-to-day, like, how are you solving your problems? Doesn't need to be super fancy, but there's things that people are using PowerShell for that are bringing them value, and that's exciting. Doesn't need to be reinventing the wheel.
I agree. When I first got into PowerShell, it was probably around 2013, and I was still on the service desk then. And so the first thing I did, of course, was onboarding, offboarding was like the first thing that I wanted to tackle. And, you know, here we are, 2024, and just in the last few months, I've been revamping our offboarding scripts because it needed some updating. And, you know, even though I did a lot of the work a while ago, there just hasn't been a lot of upkeep, and things keep changing.
Favorite session of the week?
Ooh, so far.
Pick one.
Session, probably.
Just one.
It wasn't so much a session as the workshops on Monday. I think the Pester workshops that Justin Grody and Yap did, I think, was pretty good.
Nice.
Like I said, I'm trying to do a little bit more with Pester, so that was an enjoyable work session there, I'd say.
What is your tip of the week? It could be something you've seen at PowerShell Summit. It could be a passion project or something you've realized in your life or career that's been impactful. But what is one tip of the week you have for people out there listening that may not be here this week?
Oh, a tip?
A tip. You can change lives right now. Say the right thing, okay? Don't get it wrong.
Yeah,
no pressure at all.
My tip to people would just to have the mindset of continuous learning.
Yes.
I think that is an important mindset to have in IT in general. It doesn't even have to be related to PowerShell, but just being able to have that mindset to always be trying to learn new things, because IT is always changing and you're never going to know it all. So just be humble and keep learning.
Embrace the journey.
Yeah.
Where you're going to be on it forever. There's going to be new technologies, believe it or not. Things are going to change. You're going to have to keep learning forever. Embrace it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe if you're lucky enough to come to something like this or reach out online to different communities, connect with someone else who's also on the journey.
Yeah.
Share it with someone else. Experience it. Personally, for me, it's been really so wholesome to see people grow with me. I talked to Ryan Richter earlier tonight, and it's been, one of the many people who it's cool to see, like, oh, I remember when they were a super beginner, and now they're going through their process. And, I've gone through my kind of growth journey as well, and to see that coming full circle for other people, it's such a rewarding thing, and it's one of my favorite parts about being on the ground with the community, with the people. Yeah, I love screen names. I love online interactions. I love being a remote employee, but there is something to be said about connecting in person.
Yeah.
It's sort of intangible.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I mean, with the pandemic and everything, we went full remote work there for a while, as pretty much the whole world did. And then people tried to bring people back in. I'm still mostly remote, but I do enjoy going into the office about once a week, just because, I've formed relationships over the years, and I think there's important value of just having that personal interaction with people too. So, yeah.
So, selfishly, I'm curious. So you said you're a podcast listener, been listening for a while, and for me, it's been really awesome to come full circle and be like, oh, hey, you've listened to me. Now I can listen to you in person a little bit, and now you're going to be on the podcast. I can listen back to it, and I can listen to you and learn from you. But what are some of your favorite episodes? If there's one moment or thing that kind of sticks out, I'm very curious to hear what resonates with you.
I mean, obviously, most recently, the one that sticks out is literally on the flight over. I listened to the podcast you had with Jeffrey Snover, and I thought that one definitely is going to stick out for sure. Yeah, that was a good one. I enjoyed your talk that you had with Josh Wheeler and the other guys escaped my name, but the Microsoft employees that
Sean Wheeler. Sean Wheeler and Mike Robbins.
And Mike Robbins, yes. Thank you.
Yes.
I actually had dinner with both. I talked with both of them tonight at dinner. So that was that's one of the great things about the summit is you just find yourself amongst the greats.
Yeah.
And you, even if it's just for 30 seconds or 5 minutes or over 60 minutes with a dinner with them or something, you find yourself amongst the greats, and you can pick brains and learn stuff even after the summit sessions are done.
From what you've said, it sounds like that was probably a cool experience for you. I can tell you from being friends with Mike and Sean that it was probably really cool for them as well. So it's really cool that it pays off on all perspectives. You're not doing anyone a disservice by enjoying a dinner with them and expressing the way that they've benefited you and the kind of stuff that they've done that you've received good vibes from. I always encourage people, give positive feedback to the people that help you. And this week, it's very easy. For us, it's hard for us to post publicly, I've kind of found. For me, it's a struggle to post publicly. But whenever you're in person, I think sometimes it can be a little bit easier to organically say, like, hey, I learned so much from whatever you did, or what that blog post you wrote helped me solve a huge problem and saved me a ton of time. So thank you so much. And that type of encouragement can encourage the content creator to do a lot more in the future and be that energy that they need to move on. Because it's very challenging doing things into a void and never hearing anything back. It's like you drop a penny down the well and you never hear back. You're like, oh, is there actually anything there?
Makes you wonder why you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming up and sharing your perspective on the podcast and that you listen. It really does mean a lot. It's been awesome to get to chat with you on the podcast, man. Are you on social media? I've been trying to get people to plug themselves. If people want to connect, they're like, oh, hey, I love this Tyson guy. He is right on point and very aligned with me, and I could learn from this guy. Is he on LinkedIn? Is he on X? Is he on Mastodon? Where are you?
Yeah, I am not a big social media guy.
That's okay.
So
I put you on the spot. That's fair.
That's fine. I have a funny aside, actually. If you're willing
to, we're going aside. It's a bar session, my man.
If anybody knows Doug Fink, who
I think
famously,
some people do.
I think most of your listeners will know him with the Import Excel module. I've been following him on Twitter for a while. I found out recently that he blocked me, and so I had to reach out to him to find out why. And it was because my Twitter account, I don't post, and I have no followers. I just follow all the professionals and IT experts around because that's how I get that's how I stay up on things. And so he thought that was suspicious and blocked us. I had to reach out to him directly and say, hey, was that, I'm not offended, it's fine, but was that on accident? And he was like, no, you're fine. And he allowed me to follow him again, so it's all good.
Thank you, Doug, for allowing Tyson to follow you again.
Thanks, Doug.
If Doug has banned you, know that it's been not because of something you've done, but because of
maybe your lack of followers.
Yeah, you might want to get a couple more. Hit me up. I will follow you. But hey, hi, Doug. I hope you're listening. That's hilarious. I love that. Well, so no LinkedIn?
I do have LinkedIn, yeah.
Okay, well,
yeah, all right.
Tyson O'Keefe?
Yeah, Tyson O'Keefe. You could probably find me on LinkedIn.
I haven't even found you yet, so I will connect with you, and I think
there you go.
Some of our listeners are connected with me, and they can see a mutual connection. Oh, that's the Tyson O'Keefe of the PowerShell Podcast?
There you go.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you joining me. I know I've been bugging you about this throughout the week. Like, hey, you want to join? I know you're a little shy, but I think you crushed it.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you, Andrew, and it's been great meeting you.
Yeah, shout out PowerShell Summit. It's been a great time, man, and we have another day ahead of us. So
we do.
Let's go get some sleep.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So we're going to switch roles real quick. Tyson O'Keefe is going to be interviewing me a little bit. So what questions do you have for me, man?
Well, Andrew, one of the things I'd like to know is I'd like to hear about your backstory. How did you get to the point that you are, and what was your PowerShell journey? When did you start using PowerShell? When was the aha moment? And how did you get to where you are?
Great question. I think I've asked this a few times on the podcast. So whenever I first found PowerShell was maybe like 2017, 2016. There was a period of time, my first IT job was migrating from Windows XP to 7. And I had some interactions with PowerShell in terms of using it for MDT and imaging computers. But it was always I viewed it as something that only geniuses could do. Commands? Are you kidding me? I'm not a programmer. What is this crap? But I sort of discovered it at that point in time, and I was watching some YouTube and trying to get better at my job. Eventually, I was in IT for a few years, and I was like, I want to do better. I'm not really enjoying this too much. It's kind of stagnant. So I realized that automation was kind of a cool thing. It sounded fancy at the time, right? That was a term we heard a lot, was automation. And so I kind of looked into it a little bit. I actually discovered where I work now, PDQ. We had some products, and we still do, for automating device management and for your you can use in your company. And I implemented that. And the organization I was working for, we had users had local admin. Every single user had local admin, install whatever apps they wanted. And I got there and I started learning more about IT, and I was like, yo, this is bad. We got to fix this. And the issue was how do you update applications? And then I implemented PDQ inventory and deploy, and it was kind of a cool thing. And part of the product uses PowerShell. And so I was watching PDQ, we do content, obviously this podcast, and every week we do a webcast. And part of the content they did was blogs and webcasts on PowerShell stuff in kind of a passionate way. And I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I was learning like other admin skills from them too, and like how to handle things. And they were sort of like a mentor through their content for me. And Jordan too, the former co-host of the podcast, was creating content. I think one that I really enjoyed was like creating a Spotify playlist, something or other, just silly use cases for PowerShell. There was another one on like pranking your coworkers with PowerShell, which I don't even know if I actually did. But just different ways to be like, oh, wow, PowerShell's really cool. And then eventually kind of got into it more. I definitely enjoyed the PowerShell Scripting in a Month of Lunches books. I spent a lot of time reading and not doing. I think like probably many of our listeners. Where you read about it, you're like, oh, this sounds so cool. I'm going to read it and then go back through it again and actually do it. And it's like, okay, I went through it the one time, but I didn't go back through it and do it. But overexposure over time, I was like, okay, I can actually do this. Eventually learned it. I think the first thing I did with PowerShell that was cool was something with AD, like importing a CSV, looping through it, using it to change a bunch of values instead of manually doing it. And it was like kind of a huge deal. I do remember being super confused by select member calculated properties. I was like, I understood everything done up until that point. I was like, yo, this is programming magic. What is this crap? So that's why I sort of plug calculated properties a lot on the podcast these days.
Yeah. So it was kind of when the light bulb went off?
Yep. That's when the light bulb went off. And then eventually I found out about Don Jones, PowerShell Scripting in a Month of Lunches, Jeff Hicks. And then I followed Don Jones on socials because I liked understanding their perspective and connecting with these people I looked up to. Trying to just soak up as much as I could. And Don Jones posted about, hey, there's a scholarship for PowerShell Summit. Are you in an early place in your career that could be helped? And has PowerShell impacted you a little bit? Let us know. And I was like, I saw that and I was like to my wife, hey, we need a babysitter. I need you to sanity check everything I write because I can't pass down this opportunity. So I applied and fortunately got it. I remember whenever I won that scholarship, I was in the back of a car with my coworkers, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got accepted. I'm going to Summit. What the heck? I didn't think it was possible, but you know, like a lot of times in life, you got to just put yourself out there.
So what year was that? When was the first
2018.
Summit? That was 2018.
So there was no OnRamp back then, so I just did the regular Summit. So as soon as I got awarded it, I was like, yo, I'm going. My boss is fine with it.
Straight into the deep end.
Yeah, so I was like trying to ramp up as much as I could, diving as deep as I could. And I want to shout out Fred Weinman, Josh King, Chris Gardner, many others provided a lot of support for me and encouragement, and it helped me out so much. You know, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done great things without them, but I tell you what, they massively helped reduce the time for me to be able to contribute good things and to be able to start growing. And I feel like I'm forever indebted to them and the community at large for giving me that opportunity. It's a lot of what drives me these days. But yeah, so I came to Summit that year, and it's sort of all history. By the end of the week of Summit, I had presented a lightning demo in front of Jeffrey Snover and the rest of the conference. But going into the conference, I'd already written a function for like open source projects, which for me was confusing as heck. Yeah. So I worked with Fred on a little command for his thing and then talked about it. And at the time, those things were super scary for me, right? Presenting. I was like, I've never presented anything tech wise before, but I guess I'll do it now. But it's just sort of, it's hard for me to say no to opportunity and see what can happen. You know, it's all right if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But it sort of has worked out so far. Anyways, that's a very long answer to your question of, 2018, I found PowerShell. It's sort of been history ever since. And it's nice kind of coming full circle now. And like, I got the scholarship and stuff like that years ago. And I think I've done a good job at kind of taking advantage of the opportunity and paying it forward. And now maybe for some being someone they could emulate in some ways and pay it forward in their own way. And I'm in a spot where I can help people up and bring them to another spot. And to me, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
But
other than, obviously, I know 2020, they didn't have the summit, but have you been every year since?
Every year.
That's awesome.
Every single year, every single thing, virtual, in person, whatever it is. In fact, I may have left an earlier employer of mine because there were some changes and they weren't going to send me to Summit. And to me, that's a no-go. Yeah. Sorry, it's over. And then getting my new job at PDQ, I told them, hey, so kind of like it was part of the sort of agreement as I'd be coming to Summit every year. Yep. And if not, you'll know.
So Andrew.
Yes.
What are your 3 favorite modules?
Oh my gosh, what a great question, Tyson. I don't want to say import Excel because that's so common. So I will say what genuinely probably is PS Readline is my favorite number one module. So fantastic, so extendable.
You like to customize your prompt.
I like to customize it. I like the fact that it exists, and there's been a lot of investment into PowerShell's interactive nature and taking advantage of it and making it easier. So I would definitely say PS Readline. You said Microsoft Graph whenever I interviewed you. And I have to say, I do enjoy the Microsoft Graph. Is it called the SDK, right? I don't remember the full name they give it, but it's nice. It's not the most intuitive commands all the time. Sometimes there's super long names, but what you can accomplish with it is wild if you're a 365 shop. Then I've had a lot of fun kind of automating some personal workflow stuff, right? Like even around, I actually pair programmed on this with my co-presenter on creating just a simple way to create calendar events from PowerShell, because I click in Outlook. That interface sucks so much. I got to click around 16 times. I just want to create a 30-minute calendar event so that I can block off time to work on all this crap I keep agreeing to. Because for me, I'm very eager to say, yes, I can help you with this. Yes, I can help you with this. But keeping track of it can be a challenge. So I'm already in PowerShell all the time. I just create a command like, okay, I agreed to do this thing for this person. Let me block off an hour and a half to make sure that that's represented in my day. And I don't do more than I bite off more than I can chew, so to speak.
Yep.
One more module. Gosh, I can totally relate to our list, to our guests, to my guests so far who have been confused by this question. I would say PowerShell Run by MDGRS.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, you should hear about that one. It's like a utility to, I guess, run shortcuts and things like that. What I like about it, though, is he has some TUI aspects of it. You put me on the spot, Tyson. You didn't tell me you were going to ask me that question. I kind of guess I deserve this. But there is a command that gives you some TUI stuff that I think is really cool. I'm a big fan of terminal user interfaces. I gave a talk at PowerShell Summit last year about it. So I was just excited to see it. And MDGRS-MEI, I think is his GitHub name, is a very prolific developer out of Korea, just crushing it. Awesome stuff. I'm trying to convince him to be on the podcast one day, but we're working on it. We're friends for now.
Here's a quick little side story. You actually, through the podcast, from me listening to you, you talked about the TUI console, the terminal user
Out
interface.
console grid view, yeah.
That's what it is. Thank you. And after hearing that on the podcast, I went and kind of was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Went and looked at it. I've actually since leveraged that in our new onboarding scripts and stuff. So that way,
Nice.
because I used to use Out Grid View for our service desk. It's now all in as a TUI now. It's great.
I wish you would have told me that sooner. Anything else that any other impact I've had in your life, please feel free to tell me. I love hearing it. No,
that one just came into my mind. But
no, that's awesome. I love TUIs, to be honest.
Great.
It's just a fun thing. So really cool to hear that you learned a thing or two from that. Because that is a tip I like to give. Out console grid view is a very fantastic tool. I think it's part of the Microsoft.PowerShell.console GUI tools module. Dude, am I professional? Yep. I'm just whipping this stuff out at like midnight. It's amazing. Awesome. Well, awesome. Tyson, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. If people want to connect with you, you'll be on LinkedIn. You'll be connected with me.
So you can find me.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. You said it before I did. I've said cheers on every pod, but you said it this time. So those are the vibes. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast, PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit Edition, PowerShell After Dark. The PowerShell Podcast is a production of PDQ.com.